Are you looking to become a better real estate investor? Then hang on, because you're about to experience another episode of the world's most popular real estate podcast, the BiggerPockets Podcast. But before we get to this week's show, I wanted to invite you to become part of our community, BiggerPockets.com, the real estate investing social network. The membership is free, and you'll instantly gain access to networking opportunities, educational content, investor tools, and more. Sign up now and get a free copy of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, read by hundreds of thousands of budding entrepreneurs. Just click this link right here or just head to BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 99.
Gonna party like it's show 99.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What is going on, everybody? I'm Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host over 99 shows. Oh my goodness.
99.
Crazy. It's Brandon Turner. What's up, man?
What's up? 99 shows. I can't believe I'm still talking to you after all this time.
You must be crazy. Most people don't want to talk to me after 99 shows, or
true.
99 anythings.
Well, no, this is good. This is good. I'm a little under the weather. So are you. So is Scott. So is everybody today. Apparently, the little cold is going around. But we're gonna fight through. We're strong.
We are. We got this, man. Yeah, I'm very much excited about this show. We've had a couple of technical difficulties in making this show happen. However, today's guests came through in spades for us. We had a guest that unfortunately couldn't come on and
Also got sick.
But all three of our guests today managed to come on last minute. So we're really, really grateful to them. But otherwise, things are good, man. Life is good. Thanksgiving was fantastic. I got to spend some really great time with my family, which was outstanding. My kids were ecstatic. And it was great. I know you had a great Thanksgiving. You have new writing on your arms, and things are great.
Josh is making fun of my new tattoo, but on Thanksgiving I went Thanksgiving evening to Walmart just to watch that chaos of what happens there. My wife do it every year. It's our Thanksgiving tradition.
Wait, are you making fun of people who shop Walmart on Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Wow.
But we
just lost half our listeners.
I know. That's a lot of people, but it's fun to watch. I like watching crowds go like crazy. So I don't know. It's a good tradition. We've been doing it for a few years now. But with that, I'm going to lead that into our quick tip. All right. So, okay, this is not a quick tip. But
I
just
show
thought
100. We got to do something, man.
I know. I have a funny story. This is funny. I don't think I've said this on the podcast. So I started doing this new thing. I thought of it because of when I said quick tip. You'll see why. I started doing this new thing when I go to a birthday party and we sing happy birthday. What I started doing is whoever's the loudest voice, everyone follows. I've learned this. So what you do is you slow down. So it starts out happy birthday. So I'm not even kidding. Nobody will know who did it. But by the end, you're going.
By the way, don't sing that song because they.
Oh, that's right. They have
that guy. Yeah.
So anyway, by the end of the song, it's like. Like that's how it ends. And everyone's looking around like, how did this happen? And it's the funniest thing. So anyway, try that out next time you're at a birthday party. Real good time. So anyway, today's quick tip is
I don't know what was the point of
it's because I slowed down quick tip and I made you draw it out a little bit.
Yeah.
See, I tied that in. All right. Now today's quick tip. This is something that happened in real life to me this week. And so I wanted to share it. I hired my guy who lives at our apartment complex. He's kind of our sort of resident manager to go in and do smoke alarm checks just to make sure everyone unit had smoke alarms in them because legally you have to have them.
Right.
He, in our 24 unit, he went through 70 smoke alarms and we put them in every single unit when a unit goes vacant, which means that over the past like 3 or 4 years, people just get rid of them and they throw them or whatever. So the quick tip is do inspections because you don't have smoke detectors, most likely in your units right now. You don't have them.
Who does that?
I don't know. I think what it is, it's like it starts beeping because the battery's bad. So they walk over to the wall and they just tear it off and throw it in the garbage. Yeah, garbage. Yeah. Anyway, so that's my quick tip: is do inspections for things like smoke alarms. Also, we found probably 10 like water leaks that are costing us probably, I would guess, between $500 and $1,000 a month in water that we're going to now fix. So anyway,
Nice.
inspections every 6 months or sooner. So
Great advice. Very, very good advice.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Today's show, you guys, today's show is really cool. We have 3 brand new investors who are all super smart personal finance writers. So they bring a really great perspective to the show. We've got Scott Trench, Lauren Bowling, and Philip Taylor today in that order. And I think you guys are going to love this, especially if you're getting started. You know, it's, I don't know. I mean, even though we've been around the block for a while, hearing these new guys and kind of their experiences, you know, if you've done it, it kind of brings you back. Maybe you get a little excited and maybe you're inclined to go and help some newbie out, who you know, or whatever. But yeah, lots of cool stuff. Before we get to the first interview, Brandon does have a quick word from today's sponsor.
that I do. All right. Today's sponsor is RealtyShares.com. RealtyShares.com is a real estate crowdfunding platform that allows accredited investors to invest in pre-vetted real estate deals online. So investors can browse and invest in both residential and commercial properties that yield returns of 8 to 16% annually. As a Realty Shares member, you can passively invest in professionally managed real estate investments in a variety of asset types and geographies for as little as $5,000, all from the convenience of your own living room. So to learn more and to get started with a free account, visit realtyshares.com/biggerpockets. Again, that is realtyshares.com/biggerpockets.
Nicely done. Nicely done. And big thanks to Realty Shares for sponsoring the show. Yet once again, we definitely appreciate the support and the sponsorship. That's awesome. So thank you guys. All right. Well, let's get to the interviews. First up, we've got Scott Trench. Scott is actually working in the operations here at BiggerPockets, and he just purchased his first property. His first rental property and his first property. So he's here to tell us all about it. And I'm excited to beat him up a little bit and bring him on. A poor guy puts up with my nonsense all day. I give him a hard time. And so he's a great sport. And, we love having him on the BiggerPockets team. So Scott, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you.
How's it going, Josh? It's good to be here.
I've
been a big fan of the show for a long time, so it's awesome to be here on the show with you guys.
So I got to tell everybody a story. I was sitting here in the office and just working away, and one day this guy who works in the co-work space with me comes over and he's like, "Hey, can I bring somebody in here? This guy really wants to meet you." I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" So he comes over and brings this guy. He looks like he's like 14 years old. He's super excited. He's like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of you guys. Oh my God, it's so nice to meet you." I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm Scott and here's who I am. And, I'm really interested in getting into real estate." And that was the first time we met. And it was cool. He was so enthusiastic about getting into real estate and about us and the BiggerPockets podcast, which he'd been listening to. And so it's awesome, A, to have you working for us now. Scott is, working on our operations and sales team. And B, now you've just closed on your first rental property. And so it's really cool to have you here to discuss it. So let's take it back to the very beginning. First off, what made you interested in real estate?
So I guess first of all, it's great to be a part of the BiggerPockets team. I remember that day walking in and meeting you guys. That was one of the cooler experiences I've had in my life. And
nice.
Although one thing you left out there is I tried to work for you on the weekends, and you're like, nah, just kind of move on here. And then a week later, I hear back from him, "Hey, maybe you can come in for an interview,
Nice.
and we'll talk about this." But
Awesome.
why did I get interested in real estate? I guess I've been interested in personal finance for a pretty long time. Somewhere in the course of reading those books that have been mentioned time and again on this podcast, like 4-Hour Work Week, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Millionaire Next Door, I kind of really got this goal of early retirement and creating a lot of passive income. And I guess if you're really thinking about passive income, early retirement, and investing, eventually, at least for me, I arrived at real estate. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people who really think that their whole portfolio through. And so was about a year ago probably when I really got serious about it, and I decided, I'm going to really start the process of getting into the, buy and hold rental game as soon as I can.
Okay. So you got interested in this. You were a year ago, you were 23 years old. I mean, you're still just learning what a beard is and, pimple cream and all that fun stuff.
He had a pretty nice beard last week. I didn't notice you shaved, but
yeah, his Movember was hardcore.
It was hardcore.
Right.
It was a good looking beard.
Yeah,
some might call it good looking, some might call it scruffy.
Yeah.
In the Northwest, we call that good looking. I mean, we all have kind of the lumber sexual look out here.
Mom and Dad were not sorry to see it go. That's for sure. Over Thanksgiving.
Nice. All right. So, you're a 23-year-old kid thinking about real estate investing, and a lot of people say, well, you're 23. What, how do you prep for that? I know you well enough to know that you have this mindset where you say, I'm not going to go out and blow all this cash. I'm not going to spend all my money on partying and clothes and different things. I want to save up and really get myself prepped. So let's talk about that really quickly. What's this mindset that you've got going on here?
So I guess my first mindset is, with the concept of early retirement, one of the first things that comes to mind is, how do I reduce my expenses? How do I reduce my lifestyle expenses as low as possible? And then how do I get as much passive income from that? And so I guess with my, in order to invest in real estate, I think you need cash. Obviously, Brandon Turner here is a master of the no money down game.
Low money down.
And low money down game.
Yeah.
But for me, I thought there's some risks involved with that. There's some strategies that you have to do. There's some creativity that needs to be implemented. And I thought that a better way for me to get started was kind of with the simple traditional approach. And to do that, you need a lot of money, or you need a sizable chunk to invest, which I consider to be in the ballpark about 20 grand. And so the plan was, how do I get to 20 grand as rapidly as possible? And in my situation last year, the best way to do that was cut costs. I'll live with a roommate. I'll, cut transportation costs. I'll shop at Costco, make my own food. I'm not going to not have fun on the weekends and go out and hang out with my friends, but there's certain big lifestyle expenses I think that you can reduce to help you get that savings rate that you need to get that first property.
Yeah. And in your case, I mean, you bike to work, right? You don't take a car. So, save on that. He's a member of the Crockpot Ladies.
Oh yeah. Ladiescrockpot.org. Fantastic.
So, great way to save money. You've got the roommate, all these things kind of coupled together, represent a considerable amount of savings, correct?
Yeah. And then another thing is, how do you make your lifestyle expenses, the things you do for fun, cheaper? So, for example, I play on a club rugby team, and there's ways that you can carpool with that. There's ways you can, share costs associated with events that around rugby. There's ways you can carpool to skiing. Borrow old skis. Any type of lifestyle expense that you do for fun, there's always ways to creatively reduce that cost and still have the same great time.
Yeah. I mean, I know some guys who go out and, they look better than I do, and they go shop at thrift stores and they have like fancy clothes, and it's like, that's just another way to do it too. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
I used to be a total thrift shop junkie. I even had a shirt that said, I bought at a thrift shop and it said thrift shop junkie. And
nice.
It was amazing. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I stopped that, but.
So you've done all this to cut costs, and, you've been kind of putting together this plan, right? Hey, what do I do? How do I kind of kick things off? And you eventually came to a decision that you wanted to purchase a multifamily, correct? So tell us the genesis of that. How did you get to that? And also, before you go there, I know you're also part of an investing group in town here in Denver. So maybe you could kind of lead us from there to the decision to make the duplex purchase.
Absolutely. So while I was at my old job, which was a kind of corporate finance gig, I got really interested again in this whole personal finance, early retirement idea. And I talked about it a lot. This is something I would talk about with people I met, people that I ran into, people I would meet, at lunch or in the park. And I happened to run into this guy while I was going for a jog one day, and we got to talking about investing and the early retirement concept. And he said, I've got a group of guys here that are all kind of have that same mindset. Why don't you come and meet up with us? And little did I know that this real estate, or I guess entrepreneur group, would end up being a huge asset, helping me to kind of launch my investing career here. There's different guys in the group. All the guys in the group are self-employed with the exception of a few, including myself, but they invest in various types of real estate. One's a lawyer who does commercial brokerages. He's also a commercial real estate broker. One is a house flipper. One's got a buy and hold portfolio. One's an agent. There's all different types. And they've been really great guys, really friendly. They've given me some great advice on which neighborhoods are likely to appreciate in the future, how to kind of estimate expenses in the area, and then how to kind of estimate rents. And so that really helped me kind of get more of the practical, the nitty gritty in the neighborhoods and properties that I was looking at, and kind of get a good feel for the area. And then it came time to decide what kind of house do I want to buy, what kind of property, what will be a good first investment. And in that regard, my property is probably not the traditional BiggerPockets investment. I'm living in a place called Five Points, which is a neighborhood just to the northeast of downtown Denver. And property there is not the cheapest. It is not a $30,000 property that's going to meet your 2% rule. But for me, for Scott Trench, that property makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. First of all, it's a duplex, so I can get a tenant to pay most of my mortgage. And it's also within 5 miles of the BiggerPockets headquarters, so I can keep biking to work, and I love biking to work.
Nice.
Josh hears me talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And then it's also in one of these neighborhoods that we decided there's a pretty good shot at appreciation at. So that would be, and there's a pretty good chance of that icing on the cake with that appreciation. So
Gotcha. So you're taking this guy, Brandon's concept of house hacking, essentially, and buying a duplex. You're planning on living in it. And you've also got plans for a roommate. That's the week, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about the deal more specifically. Again, it's a duplex. How did you find this deal?
I actually found it on the MLS. An agent that I met on BiggerPockets actually pointed it out to me, and she said, "Hey, I think this might fit your criteria pretty nicely. What do you think?" And I looked at it, and I've been looking at a number of properties over the last 6 months, and this one kind of seemed to fit my situation the best. It was kind of on the lower end on the price side. It was on the closer end in terms of distance to where I work. And it just kind of seemed to work out for me. So.
Oh, nice. So how did you, I guess I want to know about more the market in Denver. Cause I've been, kind of casually, sort of looking for maybe something there. And I know it's crazy expensive. Like, I mean, compared to Podunk, Washington here, where I do have the $30,000 houses, it's a whole different world. So, I mean, what is that like to shop in a competitive environment like that? Like how hard was it to find a deal?
Well, it's kind of scary because you look at a property and the property be gone in 2 days. It'll go for higher than what it's listed at. And this has been going on for months now. And this property I actually got kind of lucky on because it was initially listed with HomePath financing. HomePath financing cannot be bid on by competitors. It has to be bid on by someone who intends to occupy their place as an owner occupant.
Yep.
So that was how I was able to kind of get a little bit more time to get my numbers together. And kind of, make sure that this property did make sense for me in the end.
Yeah. I mentioned that to somebody yesterday too. They said they're in a very, very competitive market. How do they find a good deal? And that's what I said is if you find a property that's like a HUD home, something that's owned, foreclosed on by a HUD, or in your case, HomePath, but kind of the same gist of it. They have those restrictions on investors so that investors can't bid for the first, sometimes 3, sometimes 10, sometimes 30 days. That gives, owner occupants, people who are house hacking, a tremendous advantage. I mean, tremendous advantage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I think that's awesome that you did that.
And I think that with the owner occupant thing, it's not about buying a property that meets the 2% rule or that necessarily hits all the criteria that other investors seem to talk about a lot. It's about what property makes sense for you. Mm-hmm. And I think this property makes a lot of sense for me, even though it might not be the best for an investor looking to hit that, high cash flow number.
Yeah. And so your plan was, let's get a roommate, that'll cut my expenses, that'll increase my gain. Let's put somebody in the other unit. Are you going to end up having to spend any money? I mean, on a monthly basis, rent-wise or mortgage-wise, or are all your expenses pretty much covered when it's all said and done, or pretty close?
When it's all said, I mean, my mortgage payment, all said and done, is going to be about $1,500. That includes some FHA mortgage insurance, which I plan to refinance out of in a year or two.
Okay.
But even with that mortgage insurance, between a roommate paying me rent and the other half of the property being rented out, I should be able to at least cover the mortgage. There may be some expenses that I have to pay for out of pocket, depending on what the maintenance ends up costing me.
Gotcha.
But it'll be much better than my current situation where I rent for $600, $700 a month.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, and that's something that people ask me a lot too, and I just hear across the forums and all that is, if I'm house hacking or if I'm gonna do that, do I have to live completely for free? I mean, yeah, that's kind of cool if you can live for free or get paid to live for free. But sometimes if you can just get it significantly cheaper than you would otherwise, then it can still work out to be a good deal, which is what it sounds like it's going to be for you. So I think that's awesome.
And you get the experience as well.
And you get the on-the-job training. Yep.
Absolutely. And part of it is, again, it comes back to what makes sense for me, right? I could go find a property that's 20 miles away where I will live completely for free with the house hacking strategy. However, I don't want to do that. That's too far. That's not conducive to my lifestyle here.
Yeah.
And part of the investment for me is how can I reduce my total lifestyle expense?
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So tell us about working with the agent. I mean, obviously this is, well, not obviously, this is your first purchase, your first property purchase. So what was that like? And then I also want to hear about, I mean, this was not a quick close. I mean, it took a little while. There were some kind of hurdles. Tell us about that as well.
So my agent, first of all, was fantastic. Again, I found her through BiggerPockets, and we had a pretty complex transaction here. I was using FHA financing, and I was buying a foreclosure. So that's two, I mean, for people that are kind of new to this, those are two very slow moving entities in the real estate game.
What is FHA for those people who don't know? Like, what's special about that?
FHA, I can't remember exactly what the initials stand for, but it allows you to put a little
Federal Housing Administration.
Federal Housing Administration, yeah. So for me, that meant that I was able to put down a low down payment on the property, but at the cost of having to insure my mortgage. So that's going to end up being a couple $100 per month extra on that mortgage payment. You can think of that kind of like interest, plus a sizable cash payment at closing. Again, part of that insurance. But at the end result was it allowed me to put much less down on the property and get in there sooner.
Gotcha.
So,
and then on the agent.
on the I'm sorry, what about
just the general kind of process of the transaction itself? I mean, I know that we've spoken, you're like, there were a couple of headaches that kind of came in. I know I had headaches as your boss. I had to go back and forth with the lender, lots of documents back and forth with the lender, but verifying employment and those things. But what else?
Well, anytime there was any type of delay with the property, with paperwork or, with inspections or appraisals, those kind of tended to be compounded just because of the two entities I was dealing with, which again, I wasn't dealing with just one seller. For example, a couple weeks ago, they sent the FHA appraiser there to kind of determine the value of the home, and he was unable to turn on the water. Part of the FHA kind of deal is that the property has to be livable in order for them to approve the loan. And if you can't turn on the water, it's not livable. So actually, that ended up being a pretty nice little benefit for me because the bank was then forced to send in a plumber, fix all the plumbing, which I thought what I had estimated I would have to be paying for after I closed on the property. But because of the covenants of the FHA terms, they had to go in and fix all the plumbing, make it workable, and at their expense.
Nice.
So, but that again took 2-3 more weeks for us to close.
Yeah. And, well, hey, it's a nice little gimme, huh?
Yeah, it was a nice little gimme, but it was also kind of frustrating that okay, this could have been done 2 days after the appraiser went in there, but no, it took 3-4 weeks. So.
Do you mind me asking me a couple more questions about the financing side of things? I mean, like, how much did you actually pay for the property, and then what was your down payment on that?
Sure. So the purchase price was $240,000, and I put down $12,500 for that.
Okay, that's not terrible. Like you said, I mean, those are things you can save up for if you need to, by cutting expenses or increasing your living income, whatever it takes. So very cool. Well, let's move on, shift gears a little bit. I want to know about, is there anything that you would do differently now that you've been through this process? I mean, 3 months ago, somebody just like you was starting out, let's say, like where you were 3-4 months ago. What advice would you give them that they should do differently or maybe do the same as you did?
I guess one of the things that I would kind of have done differently is maybe been more prepared with my funds. I had all these funds, and I've been a really big investor with personal finance. So I had all these funds in different retirement accounts and different brokerage accounts. It might have been easier if I had kind of had these all in a liquid format, ready to go at the time when I was looking to purchase properties. I think that there's more opportunity when you have that all settled and all together in one kind of one account, where you can make offers and kind of deal with sellers more easily. In this case, I was limited in my opportunity to buy because of the illiquidity of my assets.
Nice. Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah.
so you just closed. I mean, you literally just closed on Thanksgiving weekend. So you just closed on this property. There's still some work to be done. Obviously, I know you've talked about the roof and all sorts of other stuff that you need to kind of get together. This is a show for newbies. This is a show for pretty much everybody. I'm curious, what's your emotion? First off, like, how do you feel? You just closed on your first property at 24. Are you scared? Are you excited? And what's kind of your plan to get it filled and move in?
Well, it's funny because when I closed on the property, I actually closed. My family lives back in Maryland, so I went back to Maryland for Thanksgiving, and the bank insisted that I close right when they were ready. So that happened to be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and I'm back in Maryland, and so they send a notary to my parents' house, 1,600 miles away from the property, and when I go through the 2 hours of paperwork and close on the property, and at the end, the notary says to me, normally this is like a big moment in people's lives where, there's like a bottle of champagne, they hand you the keys, they shake your hand, but here you go. Here's the paperwork. I guess you'll see the property on Monday. So
That's funny.
my emotion kind of, I guess, was different than a lot of people who make their first purchase, where they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is my home now."
Yeah.
But because I was at my parents' house. I guess I kind of was more business-like. When I actually landed in Denver on Monday, I went to the property and checked it out, and that's kind of when it hit me. This is mine. This is my property. This is my house. I can do whatever I want. I'm excited to get to work on it.
Yeah. My last question to you on this property is, you and I have talked and somewhat battled over the past couple of days about your plan, right? Get it. Hey man, let's get this thing fixed up. Let's get it stat, and I know your plan is a little more reserved. You're definitely methodical about how you want to make sure everything gets taken care of. And I think that's great. But for somebody who just bought a duplex that needs some work, you're not going to move in first and then worry about the other unit, right? You're going to do something. You're going to fix the unit that you're going to rent out first, correct?
Yep. So I plan to. Well, the biggest thing is with the duplex is there's going to need to be some work on the roof, and I'm going to need to put in do some additional plumbing work. They did fix the water, but they didn't add any hot water. So that's pretty useful if you want to live in or rent out a property.
Yeah.
And so once those two big things get done, I'll be able to move into the property, and then I can start doing almost everything else on my own. I think I have the skill set and the handyman skills to kind of do all the remaining repairs. And my plan, I guess, would be to make one side perfect, or at least up to code for the tenants, and then move into the other side as soon as that's done and get a tenant in there. And that's going to start this weekend. I closed in the place on Wednesday, and I've been planning and contacting contractors and trying to get all that in place for this weekend and next weekend.
So in other words, you're not going to live in the unit while you're fixing it up. You're going to fix it up first, then move in, and then fix up the other side, and then move somebody else in. That's what you're saying?
I'm going to do a bare minimum of fixing up to both units at first.
Okay.
Then I'm going to move in once I've got hot water and a roof and a new roof on it, and then I'm going to start repairing it.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So.
Cool. That's exciting. I had a friend 2 years ago who knew that I did real estate, and I worked at a bank with her, and 2, 3 years, I think it's 3 years ago now, man. Anyway, in this property
getting old,
man. I know. This property came up on the market for $60,000. It was a triplex with like a whole separate big house and then 2 other units in the back. The best like owner occupant, situation you could imagine for that kind of thing. And for $60,000, I mean, she'd be making, bank cash flow every month. Like I said, 3 years ago, I just asked her the other day if she's gotten the units rented out yet. She said not yet. And so for the last 2.5, 3 years, those units have just been sitting empty, and they need about $1,000 worth of work. Maybe it's like they need paint. That's about it. Yet like there's something that stopped them. So I guess my encouragement to you and everyone else is get that done as quick as possible, because it's very easy for months and months to go by and not do it. And that's just, I mean, you know this, Scott, like that's cash in your pocket every month that you don't have it rented. You're a finance guy, you get these. But yeah, some people don't. So anyway, that's my encouragement.
No, I absolutely agree, and I'm going to try to move as quickly as possible. But again, I'm kind of limited to afternoons and weekends. But I'm really trying to get that done as fast as possible. However, my projections financially start, with having a tenant in there by the end of February,
Nice.
which I think is pretty conservative. So
Nice.
I'd like to get them in there much sooner. But I'll be fine on my projections if I.
Have you thought about?
them in.
Have you
And I
thought
love
about?
that, by the way. I love that he projected, so many months out. It gives him time. He had cash in hand, ready to kind of have this property empty for a few months, and wasn't going to be in deep trouble if he didn't get the tenant in by then. I think that's a really good idea to be conservative, especially the first time that you jump in and do this.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate how much work a property takes to get rented. I mean, I know I did. Like, I can think of probably 20 times in my life where my wife and I would be up till midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning trying to get units rented out for like a week straight, because we wanted to get it rented out by this date, and we just completely underestimated how long it actually takes. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Right on. Well, Scott, where do you see yourself going forward with real estate? Big goals? What's kind of the long-term plan here?
So I'd like to. This year I purchased 2 properties, and it's my kind of first year out of college here. Next year I'd like to purchase, or I guess that I consider the duplex 2 units. Next year I'd like to purchase 4, either a 4-plex or 2 duplexes, whatever. And I kind of like to keep trying to play that doubles game as long as I can here. I am not convinced that my next property will end up being in Denver. It could be a couple hours away. I think there's plenty of properties that meet kind of the more standard investment criteria around the country, and especially within 100 miles of Denver, that I can start investing in. So I think that's going to be my plan going forward, is
Cool.
get those kind of 2% properties.
Nice.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, let's move on, I guess. Wrap this thing up with our world famous
Four. Something wrong with your voice there, Brandon? Wow.
All right, the famous four.
That was awkward.
It's always awkward. The famous four. These are the questions we ask everyone. And Scott, I know you've heard us ask people these questions before, so I'm excited to be able to ask you them. So I'll start out with number 1. Do you have, and if so, what is it, your favorite real estate book?
My favorite real estate book. I'm gonna plug Brandon Turner here and say it's the book on investing in real estate with no and low money down.
Yeah,
All right,
whatever.
what's really your favorite real estate book?
Which they can get at BiggerPockets.com/no money.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Ultimate Beginner's Guide is a good, bigger real estate book.
Are you giving him
I'm gonna say
suggestions,
Millionaire
Josh?
Real Estate Investor is probably that's the book I read before I heard of BiggerPockets. And
Millionaire Real Estate Investor, Gary
There
Keller.
you go. Nice book.
Cool.
Good book.
All right.
All right. What about favorite business book?
Favorite business book. It's not really a business book, but I think that one of my favorite books that really changed my mindset and how I think. I'm a big numbers guy, so I really liked how they kind of projected it, and that's The Millionaire Next Door.
Yeah.
I think they did a great job of kind of very quantitatively proving what helps build wealth.
Gotcha. Good book.
Cool.
T. Harv Elgar, I think. All right. What about hobbies? You said you play rugby. In fact, it was funny. One day I'm at work, and then Scott walks in, and he's got like a big old shiner from rugby. So wild child. What else do you do?
Yeah, well, I'm a big rugby player. Played it my whole life. I'm a big skier now that I've moved out here to Colorado. I love that. Try to go at least once a weekend.
Nice.
Hit a couple mountains. Love biking. Love running. Anything physical. And I'm a big reader. So
Cool.
Cool.
Awesome.
You're also a very good large. What's the game called? Large Jenga or whatever.
Oh, Giant Jenga.
Giant Jenga. Yeah.
Me and Brandon went downtown Denver and kind of went a little bar hopping for a little bit there. And
yeah, we had a good time.
We had a good time.
I hear you. I hear you're the champion. I hear you.
Yeah,
he's the legend.
Myself a legend.
He's the legend.
Giant Jenga, and then proceeded to topple the tower everywhere. Twice.
Yeah, thank you. You screwed us on that. That's all right. I forgive you. I don't hold grudges, jerk. All right, final question. What do you believe sets apart successful investors, those who actually take action and get things done and move forward, versus those who fail, give up, never get started? What do you see in successful investors?
I think it's a mindset. I think it's goals. If you have a clear objective that you want to achieve and believe that it's achievable, I think that's what will help you keep going. Because, again, I think that the hardest step to take in real estate investing is going from not investing to being an investor. And for me, what that took was about a year of saving and projecting and planning to get that down payment ready for this property.
Yeah,
so,
nice,
great,
man, great. Otherwise, where can people learn more about you?
BiggerPockets.com. You can check me out at BiggerPockets.com/Scott Trench /users/Scott Trench. And yeah, I'm always here. I'm always available. Any questions about BiggerPockets or newbie real estate investing? I'm happy.
Or ad sales.
Ad sales. Yes, if you want to advertise on BiggerPockets.
Oh yeah. Good plug. Nice. And also, Scott's been doing some writing for us on the BiggerPockets blog about personal finance and
kicking my butt in terms of traffic, comments, everything.
Yeah,
it's very depressing.
Not all of them are loving though. So
doesn't matter. You write well.
Yes.
All right, well, Scott, this has been really fun. We are glad to have you on the BiggerPockets team, obviously, and I know Josh and I talk about it all the time. We love having you here. So
yeah, we appreciate
it. Great to be here. I think it's the coolest job in the world, and I got to be on the podcast today. So
yeah, world famous.
Fantastic.
Baby. Awesome, Scott. Thanks so much, man. I'll see you in about 6 seconds.
All right. See you then.
All right, bye, Scott.
Bye, guys.
Very cool. Very cool. Good interview. I like that guy. I sure like Scott.
Yeah, he's even though he's listening, if he weren't listening, we might have something else to say. But no, Scott's great, and I'm excited about this new deal for him. It's been fun to watch him go through the process. Seeing how excited he was. I know that you and I both were kind of beating him up when he was looking at it about just different things and really trying to make sure that he was smart about what he was doing and really considered everything. And he did. And he did what worked out for him. And I think this will be great. So, Scott.
Just to add on to that, what I was just thinking is, a lot of people are probably thinking, well, yeah, Scott works at BiggerPockets. Of course, he's going to have, he's going to buy a good investment property like he did. But the unique or kind of cool thing is, like, one, Scott did most of this on his own. Like, he learned in the forums. And the second thing is, everybody listening to the show has the exact same opportunities that Scott does, because every day, Josh, me, all the BiggerPockets team, people way smarter than us are in the forums every single day and asking and answering questions and just hanging out. So anyway, just let that be encouragement to people, is jump in.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the next interview with Lauren Bowling. Lauren's a writer over at lbandthemoneytree.com. And she's doing the house hacking thing, well, similar to what Scott's doing, but a little bit different than anyone else we've had on the show. So why don't we bring Lauren in? Lauren, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome. We are glad to have you. And thank you again for coming in last minute. I know we just asked you a few hours ago. So you definitely saved us here on coming in to do this interview. So thank you. Today,
thank you.
Yeah, today we're going to talk to you about something that I did in the very, very beginning, and I thought it was one of the best ways to get started building a real estate investment business, or whatever you want to call it. So maybe can you kind of tell us what is it that you do with real estate?
So I bought my first home in July 2013. I knew I wanted to get into having passive real estate income, but because I was just starting out, I knew I was going to have to live in it. So I actually own it. It's my first home technically, and then I also rent it out to people. So I'm just starting out on this sort of real estate investing adventure.
Nice. Cool. And it's a single family house, right? And you rent out the bedrooms like to roommates, is that right?
Yeah, it's a single family home, 2,000 square feet here in Atlanta, and it's 3 bedrooms. And the attic's actually a master suite, so I live up there and then rent out the bedrooms downstairs.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's always a great way to get going. If whether it's a single family or a duplex, other kind of small multifamily. As Brandon dubs it, house hacking. As a means for kind of kicking things off. I have a question for you, and it's going to be very pointed, and don't get mad at me. But why
Okay.
are you taking the master suite instead of the small bedroom and not getting all that extra money renting out the biggest room in the house?
Because I like my privacy,
Oh.
and I live with people I know, and so I kind of just like having that sort of separation
All right,
between me and them.
all right,
So
fair enough. Fair
I'll
enough.
admit
I took the nicest room as well when I did that.
All right. So what let's talk about it. How did you find this property? And when you did find it, was the intent, hey, I'm going to buy this to start renting it out, or was it you bought it, then you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can use this as a means to build some income and start becoming a landlord.
Well, that's a very interesting question. I was engaged when I bought the house, so we bought it thinking that we were going to live here as a family. It was a total fixer upper. I
Okay.
put about $60,000 worth of renovation money into the home,
Okay.
and then we parted ways. But I legally own the house, so then I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn this bad situation into a good one, and rent it out and recoup my money that way. And it's
It's
actually
his
been better
loss.
for me. Well, totally. Yeah, this house is beautiful. So
Yeah, and he's off trying to find somebody. He's never going to find somebody as cool as you. So
thank you.
don't worry
It
about
was
it.
it was a long time. Well, not long, about a year ago. But thank you.
All right. So you took a difficult circumstance and you kind of turned it around. Um, what what's it like renting out a house that was your house for you and your and sorry to kind of go there, but like you and your fiance, living with these tenants, is that different? Is it difficult, or how does it feel like to have tenants in the same unit as you're in?
Um, I've actually lucked out. One of the tenants is my brother, so he kind of understands the situation and treats the house like it's his own.
Nice.
We had another roommate, and she kind of treated it like a rental, and she would throw her things everywhere, and she would be really messy. And it's like, this is my home. Like, I've doubled down and put everything I have into this. So that part is difficult. I think not from he and I were going to live here memories perspective, but just from the fact that I've invested so much
Yeah.
financially and emotionally. It's hard to see people come in and just kind of treat it like they would an apartment in a complex or something, if that makes sense.
I exactly know what you mean. I get like irritated all the time when I look at a property. Like, I fixed up, we used to flip houses, and then we would turn the flips into rental properties because the market started crashing. And so I look at these houses that were one time just gorgeous, and like I look at the pictures, and then I drive by today and I'm just like sad because it just looks like every other rental around. Like, it, they don't care. They don't maintain it the way that a flip looks or the way that I wanted it to look. They treat it just like your average blue collar neighborhood, and it hurts every time. Like, I just feel like irritated that they don't treat it to the level that I would. So I feel you there. So
well, how do you deal with that? I mean, as
Sure.
a landlord, as somebody who's renting out a property and who lives with the other person, I mean, you see this. Yeah, I don't know if that person's still there living with you, and if so, hopefully they're not listening. But I mean, what do you do when somebody's just kind of disrespecting the property a little bit while you live there?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult when you know the person at least a little bit, because then you kind of dance around those conversations whereas you'd probably be more direct with somebody that you didn't know so well.
Yeah.
She doesn't live here anymore. It was one of those situations where me and my brother both tried to talk to her about, how she was keeping the house and the way she was treating it, and eventually we had to part ways because we couldn't agree. So
Yeah.
And I
Gotcha.
think that's an important thing, right? Like, when you live with people, obviously you have to get along with them. I mean, when you have a tenant that lives next door or lives a mile away or 100 miles away, you don't necessarily have to like them. But when you're living with them, you kind of got to like them at least somewhat, which makes it weird too with the whole, like, I have a rule, like, I don't rent to family or friends. But when you're in that situation, you kind of, you don't have to, but you generally either become friends with the person or you rent to your family. So I've done both. I rented to my brother-in-law and I rented to one of my closest friends back then.
Nice to see you following the rules, Brandon.
I know. Well, I didn't have these rules, right? And
Rules
honestly,
are meant to be broken. Who cares?
There you go. Yeah. So I mean, it's an awkward place because you want to be friends with people that you live with. You don't want to be weird, but at the same time, you want to maintain that professionalism and that it is a business, whether or not it's a you're not selling a product per se, but you are running an investment business just by having that house. So I don't know. Do you have any good tips for people who are doing the same thing, who have roommates or renting out a room in their place for dealing with that kind of thing?
I would just say get it all in writing. When you're with someone, it's kind of more casual. It's like, oh, well, we'll do kind of like a handshake agreement.
Yeah.
And you can't go back to those when, stuff hits the fan. So that would kind of be my number one rule. And also just to be careful. I think sort of the bad situation with the person who was living here before has kind of turned me off to being a landlord in some ways. And so if that's something that you want to do, I would say starting out, just make sure all your ducks are in a row. So that way you can keep doing and keep up that bandwidth.
Yep.
That's great advice. And, I'm glad you actually said that. I mean, I'm not glad that it's happening to you, but I'm glad that we're talking about it because I think it is important. And I think a lot of people experience, get that one or two bad experiences early on. And they're like, I'm done. I've had it, if this is what it's going to be like, why would I want to continue? Why would I want 10, 20, 50 units if just having one or two, people are going to treat me terribly. And so, at least from our brief conversations, it sounds like, you have plans to kind of continue going forward and eventually potentially moving out and renting the property. So this hasn't totally turned you off.
No, definitely not. And I got lucky. I bought in sort of an up and coming neighborhood here in Atlanta. So I bought at sort of the bottom of the market and now things are turning around. And I have a lot of equity in this home that I hope to one day leverage into another investment property, or either a home that I will just live in me by myself and then rent out this one and have this be like the sole source of income. So
yeah. Do you mind if I dig in a little bit on the numbers? Like, what did you buy?
No, absolutely.
Cool. What'd you buy it for originally?
I bought it for $65,000, and then I got down payment assistance through the city of Atlanta through a LIFT program that they were doing to revitalize neighborhoods that had been hit hard by the economic downturn. Okay. And then now I think it's worth like 140, 150.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Sorry, my phone's going off here.
And you said you had put in about 60 in repairs.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so so that puts you at, 120, you got a little bit, you got some equity. Tell us about the program because, I'd be curious, what's that like? Do you have to put money down or do they just give you full assistance or 100% or how does it all work?
So it's a soft loan. So they gave me $15,000 towards a down payment and closing costs. Okay. And it's forgiven $5,000 for every year you live in the home as your primary residence. And I had to pay $1,000 just as like a program fee. But then at closing, they put that money in and I was able to, I think I paid maybe $800 at closing. That's it. Okay. To get the keys to a home. Yeah. Which is, what a lot of people pay to get into an apartment. So yeah, I lucked out. I found it through just researching. They don't offer the program anymore because they ran out of grants, but for anybody looking to do that, looking to house hack, I would say, and research your options for down payment assistance because a lot of, first time owners who make a home their like primary residence can qualify for that money.
And what would I do? Would I just look for down payment assistance and like, if I'm in Denver, which I am, I would say Denver had down payment assistance plans or I mean, is that pretty much what you're Googling or?
Yeah, you could Google that or you can talk with your mortgage broker. They won't mention it to you, but if you ask, they'll probably tell you if something's going on or if they know of a program that would be a good fit for you.
I was going to add a real estate agent, like they get paid when they get people in houses. So agents are usually like really good. Agents and mortgage people both are really good at knowing about those programs. So it's definitely something to ask because you never know. I mean, I know there's programs like that in almost every city, or there was. Every major city had something like that, and some of them are still going on today. So it's worth looking into. Yeah. So cool. Well, let me ask you about we talked about kind of financing then. I guess the down payment assistance, they covered that. Did you still have to go to a regular bank to get the loan then?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you like went to just a typical bank and I guess what was that process like? Was that difficult for you? You running into any, issues in that?
Um, it was only difficult in terms of there's more paperwork always when you go through things like that. So you have to be really hyper organized and make sure you have. Um, they wanted letters from all of my previous landlords, the bank, and then also the down payment assistance. They wanted to ultra verify my income, and a few other things because I also freelance. They wanted a little bit more proof of that than the bank had asked for.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Hey, in terms of organization, I think that's something where a lot of people find issue. I know Brandon has this problem. I work with him every day, and he's
I have a lot of problems.
well, we could talk about them now if you want, or we can just use it as an aside, as an
Okay,
example.
sure.
I mean, I'm mostly organized, but what kind of advice would you give for somebody in terms of organization? What, somebody who's buying their first property, what kind of things do they need to kind of get together? How organized do they need to be? What do you do?
I would say if you know that you're looking to buy a home within the next 3 to 6 months, to go ahead and start pulling your tax returns, your W-2s, rental history, maybe start, maybe kind of reaching out to your previous landlords if that's something that you feel comfortable doing, just saying, hey, can I have a letter saying that I lived with you and that I was a good tenant? Those things go really far.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
I think it's great. And I wrote an article last week on the blog about how to get a bank to say yes to you every time. And I talk a lot about what you need to have prepared to get a loan and how you can organize that and stuff. But anyway, you can check it out if you want to. It's on the blog, everyone. And I'll link to that in the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show99.
99.
But that said, I want to move on and ask you about the repairs. You said you did about 60 grand of repairs in that. Did that come out of your own pocket, or did you get any kind of financing for that, or how did that all come together?
No, I did a 203K renovation loan.
Okay.
So they lumped the cost of that into my mortgage. And since I had bought the house for such a low price, it was well within what I had been pre-qualified for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any problem, taking out that much to finance the house. And I actually was really thankful that I had that available to me, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do any of that.
Yeah.
So it was a great way to renovate a home without having a ton of cash on hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you explain, what is a 203K and how, how do you go looking for these things?
Again, if you talk to your mortgage person, there's lots of literature about it. Most big banks like Wells Fargo, Chase, that kind of thing, have like their own brochures about the 203K renovation loan. You have to have a contractor come out and estimate the work he'd like to do on the home. And then you can take out a certain amount, and then they put that amount into sort of like a separate escrow account for you. And then you have an inspector come through and check the work at these checkpoints and say, yes, the floors were done. Yes, the kitchen was repaired. And then he'll release those funds to you, give you a check to sign, and then you hand it to the contractor. So you never actually touch the money except when the check comes made out to the contractor. You just have to sign it. And paperwork it was pretty straightforward. It was all lumped into the basic underwriting process of the initial mortgage.
Okay.
So I can't really speak to how that qualifying process works, but I know that it is available.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the 203K loan. I mean, I talk about it all the time. I write about it. It's in chapter 2 of my book that I just wrote. It's the entire chapter is like about kind of house hacking, and that's one of the main parts is the 203K loan. So I don't know. I think that's really cool that you used it, and you used it exactly the way that I think people should. And for those people who are interested in doing that, just so you guys know, you can do that with a 1 or a 2, 3, or 4 unit property. So you can actually use a 203K loan on a 4-plex or a triplex or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that because you get to do exactly what you did, right? You bought a low price property that needed work. You fixed it up using the bank's money, and then you added instant equity in when you did that. And so you kind of get to gain all these different sides at the same time. And now you get the cash flow because you're renting it out the rooms in there. I mean, just all around, it's just an awesome thing you're doing. So I commend you on that. Good job. So
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah. What about mistakes? Anything you did wrong? Anything you'd redo over?
I think just because it was my first time renovating, first of all, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but I would not recommend such a massive renovation. I bought a foreclosed home. It had no plumbing. It had no HVAC, no nothing. And so I was basically starting from scratch. And I know a lot of first time buyers just kind of do like cosmetic updates on the
Yep.
home.
Yep.
And so I think I bit off a little bit more than I can chew in that respect. And then I also didn't super do my due diligence with the contractor. Luckily, there were, guards in place through using the 203K program that prevented him from completely taking advantage of me. But I was not satisfied with his work in
Yeah,
that respect.
You're not
Yeah,
alone.
yeah. I was gonna say that's one thing we complain about on the show all the time. Every
Yeah.
guest, same thing. It's dealing with contractors is one of the most difficult parts of being in the real estate industry at all.
Which
So,
is an absolute shame. And
Yeah.
and there's these sites that have these referrals with ratings, and you know what? I've used contractors who've had plenty of high ratings, and I've been screwed by them. And so it's referrals is really really one of the best ways to find a good contractor. Talking to other real estate investors, and find out who they're using. But we've all been there, so don't feel too bad.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my realtor actually referred him to me.
Oh, fired.
He went to her church. I don't know if he'd ever done any work for her actually, but so that's probably where I went wrong. She seemed nice, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I have it all in one little package. But
I tell you what, I think that's one of the worst ways to find a real estate agent and to find anyone else is to go through a personal, like I think personal references are great to some extent, but when you're talking about somebody who's going to be part of one of the biggest purchases you're going to make, they're friends with my mom or somebody who went to my church is a really easy. It's so easy to go that path, and
yeah, it's
so
very
many people do
convenient,
it. Yeah,
and that's not a good thing.
right. But
Yep.
like the agent that you're using to buy that 4-family may have never sold a 4-family, may not know how to analyze it, may not know enough, and maybe giving you not the best information. So I'm not trying to pick on you or use you as an example. I'm using you as an example.
oh,
But don't I definitely recommend vetting folks primarily through a network of people who may have worked with those individuals, not necessarily because they're friends or churches, and that again, it's convenient, but sometimes it can be problematic.
yeah, it ended up costing me thousands of dollars because I just didn't vet him properly, and because he didn't do the work right the first time. So yeah, that would be my biggest piece of advice: is just do your homework and then do extra homework, whatever you think is appropriate. Do more than that.
Well, and I do like what you said about the 203K loan. One of the nice things about that is they don't release funds to the contractor until the work's been done and expected. And so there is a few more safeguards to make sure that they're not like you said, not completely ripping you off. And that's just one more benefit of the 203K that I like. Because it's not my fault. It's the bank's fault. Sorry, you didn't do that right.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the one yelling at the contractor. So.
But that's something that newbies should and experienced people should be doing as well. I mean, releasing, giving half the money up front to a contractor is just a really bad idea. You definitely want to have milestones and really organize the process. And if you find a contractor who says, well, I want 50, 75% up front, or I'm not doing this, move on. There's always going to be somebody else.
Yeah. What I typically do if they want all that money up front, it's usually because they need material, and the guys in my area don't have any money at all, right? So I'll say, well, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll buy the material. You just get it all together at Home Depot.
Yep.
Call me. I will pay for the material, and that'll be your 50% up front. And I'll give you whatever else 20% as your down. Yeah, as your starting fee or whatever, and that's usually worked out good for me. But anyway, so we got to move on, wrap this up. But I guess my last question is, where do you see yourself going in the future? Do you plan on buying more? You said earlier you might turn this into a rental, or we talked about that. I mean, like a full-time rental. Like, what are your thoughts going forward with real estate?
Yeah, I definitely see this home. I don't think I'll be here, for the long term, like I had initially thought when I purchased the property. But it'll definitely turn into a rental. I would like to buy more because, just collecting that check every month does get addictive. So I would like to, be a little bit more in that. I'll probably, I don't know, maybe hire somebody to help me with the property management aspect of it if I ever start having more than one or two.
Yeah.
Just because, as I said before, I'm a little turned off to the landlord thing right now.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I definitely want to keep going.
Nice. Well, and my last question is, you're a personal finance writer. So I guess I would say, besides real estate, what else do you recommend people do to financially prepare for the future? You know, what's your biggest and best tip? I mean, we have an audience of real estate investors, but you know, they're all primarily interested and concerned about their personal finances. So, you know, what's your big takeaway?
I think other than real estate, just creating multiple streams of, passive or not passive, but just multiple streams of income. So I freelance, I have the blog, I have my full-time job. I also, rent out rooms. I'm just trying to have as many different avenues as I can to make up this total income pie. That way I'm not so reliant on one thing or another to make my living. I don't like having that pressure. So that would be my one tip. That's kind of what I write a lot about on my site as well.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's kind of like a different side of what earlier on this podcast we talked with Scott, who he's really big on cutting expenses. Like that's his push. And I like there's two sides, right, of building wealth, and it's cutting expenses or adding income. And so you kind of add that side to the personal finance stuff. So I love that.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, let's move on to our world famous four.
Famous four.
Something wrong with your voice, Josh?
No. Puberty.
All right, good. These questions we ask everybody, and we'll see what you got to say. Number one, do you have a favorite real estate related book? I know you're not like, gung ho buying lots of properties, but do you have any books that come to mind when you think real estate? It's okay if you say no. It's okay to say no.
Gosh.
That's all right.
Put her on the spot, boy.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay, that's fine.
Right now.
That's fine with us. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair
That's
enough.
a good answer.
Enough. How about business book? What business books come to mind?
Oh gosh, I just read one. It's not necessarily a business book, but it's just about work-life balance. It's called Overwhelmed. And it's by she writes for The Atlantic. Her name is Bridget Schultz. And it's just about how our lives keep getting busier and busier. And that kind of ties into the revenue question, but just how can we make it so that our lives balance out with our work and that we feel good about ourselves and we're not just heads down in a cubicle 9 to 5 all the time. So It's not super business related, but it was a really good one I read recently.
Awesome.
Yeah, nobody's ever recommended that one, so I love new books.
Yeah, that's
hey.
Great. Yeah. What do you do? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
So I work out a lot. I do yoga. I walk my dog. I go hiking. But then I also perform in community theater shows.
Nice.
I have a theater degree. I was a professional actor in New York for a while, actually like a year or two.
What year?
And so
Josh,
2009 to 2010.
Oh, I predated you by a decade, but okay.
Yeah. So I still do community theater. I like to be in musicals. I love rehearsing, and it's completely unrelated to writing or finance. It's a really good outlet for me.
Nice.
What's your favorite musical?
I'm
a huge fan of musicals too. So
Thoroughly Modern Millie's my favorite.
Really? I have not seen that one.
Oh, it's so cute. It's so good.
Maybe I'll watch that sometime.
You guys having a moment?
We are having a moment, theater nerds. All right. Last question for me anyway. What do you believe sets apart successful, I'm going to say, open it up, not just real estate investors, but just successfully financial people who are financially successful. Thanks, Mom. From those who never, so what sets apart financially successful people from those who continually struggle in life and never really kind of gain any traction or get anywhere? What would you say?
I think what sets people apart is just having that, I want to call it an investor's mindset, knowing that it's a lot of small actions over time that make you successful, that very few things happen overnight. And realizing that difference between sort of flash in the pan, fast success, and the kind of stuff that you build over time is, I think, what makes people successful with their finances. Because I don't know anybody who's gotten rich overnight, literally overnight.
Yeah.
So I
like
think
it.
that's what
thank you. I think it's great. Well, awesome. My last question is, where can people learn more about you? You've got a website. What's the URL? And tell us a little about that.
So my website is lbeeandthemoneytree.com. That's LBEE and themoneytree.com. And it's based off my nickname. People call me LB. Or they can find me on Twitter, Instagram at LBMoneyTree, or they can find my web series, Awkward Money Chat, using the hashtag Awkward Money Chat. So
Cool.
lots of ways to find me.
I just watched an Awkward Money Chat today, the one with Paula Pan. I thought it was excellent. So
Thank you so much. I hope to do
I love
season
that.
2. Yeah.
Nice. Well, very cool. Well, thank you very much. And Josh,
All right, Lauren,
you want to take us out?
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'll take you out, Lauren. Thank you. It was great. We really appreciate it, and thank you for. I mean, seriously, thank you for coming in last minute, and big thanks to Letitia as well for helping us scoop you up and get you on the show. So much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right,
Take care.
You
got it. All right, guys. That was great. That was our interview with Lauren, and I hope you all got some really good information. I know I did. If people want to know more about her, you can check her out at lbandthemoneytree.com. That's LBEE and themoneytree.com.
Cool. Yeah. And I do love that strategy, the 203K thing. That loan is such a fantastic loan product. I talk about it all the time. So like I said earlier, if people do want to learn more about it, pick up a copy of my book, The Book on Investing in Real Estate with No and Low Money Down by visiting biggerpockets.com/no money. I just want people to know if they want to learn more about the book, you know?
It is a good book, and you find every opportunity.
I find every opportunity to plug it.
You do.
We're going New York Times bestseller. It's getting there.
Nice. All right. Well, let's move on. Today's third guest is Philip Taylor, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. Phil is a writer at ptmoney.com. And he's a great guy who turned a potentially bad situation into a really great financial opportunity for himself and his family. We'll talk all about it. And again, we are grateful to Phil for coming on, and it's been great knowing him over the past few years. So I'm excited. So Phil, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you.
Josh, totally glad to be here. And hi, Brandon.
Hello.
Looking forward to the chat.
Hey, look at that. He actually said hi to me. Most people don't say hi to me. Josh welcomes them, and then they ignore me like I'm chopped liver. Isn't that the phrase?
Oh, look
Josh?
at you.
Yeah, chopped liver. You've been
You're
using
a member
that.
of the tribe. I love it.
Well,
Anyway.
I see you guys in pair everywhere I go. So
That's true. We're kind of joined at the
I can't
hip.
leave you off. Yeah.
Yeah, he's my other wife.
Wow, I'll put that on my Twitter today. I'm
Nice.
Brandon, Josh's other wife. All right, Philip, let's just start early on. I mean, how did you get into real estate? How did you buy? You got one property, so how did you get it? When was that, and how did that happen?
Yeah, so my one property is my old home. So I'm sort of a quasi-accidental landlord. And I say it like that because we bought it in 2007, October 2007. It's a townhome across town now. When we decided to move out of that property, selling it it wasn't an underwater situation, but we would have lost some of our down payment, a small amount of our down payment. And my wife and I just were not in a position to do that. We just didn't feel comfortable doing that. It was like a pride thing, you know. And luckily, my income at the time was enough to support a couple of mortgage payments if things went wrong. And really, when we bought the property, we sort of knew that it would be a potential rental property for us. And so we kind of had that in mind. We bought it. So it's we've owned it for 7 years now, and it's been a rental property for the last two and a half. Yeah.
Nice. And how's that been for you?
It's been very positive. For me, it was something that I thought, I always wanted to get into real estate in some level. And so it certainly gave me that opportunity. I decided if I was going to do it, I was going to do it all the way, DIY, 100%, rent it out myself, repair it myself, and manage it myself.
Nice.
And so I've done all those things. And you guys know that I'm a writer. I'm a financial writer. And so I was able to get a lot of good content out of that experience. And so it's been good. It's been a very, something I was a little nervous about. I'm a pretty conservative guy, but for the most part, at the end of the day, I can say that, I've been really happy and blessed to have gone through it. And now I see it as something that's going to be a big part of our future,
Yeah. So you mentioned you're an accidental landlord. Tell us about tell us a little bit about what that is. This is really a show aimed primarily at newer investors and newer real estate folks. So what's an accidental landlord, and other folks who may be finding themselves in a similar position, what advice do you have for them to get through? And you haven't really told us the experience necessarily, but get through kind of some of the challenges that come with being an accidental landlord.
Yeah. So for me, how I would define it is someone who needs to sell their house for some reason, but can't ultimately can't sell it and has to turn it into a rental property because either the market doesn't produce a buyer
Yep.
or the market produces a sell price that is either below the equity that's in the house currently or is just a sort of a negative. For our case, it was starting to bite into our down payment that we had put down on the house. And so,
Right on.
um, so yeah, so that's accidental for us. And I would say, I'm a fairly conservative guy, and so I don't like to lose money. And so in this situation, we luckily had our finances lined up where, we could kind of handle both properties at the same time. And I would say that, I don't know. I mean, for me, I wanted to be in real estate eventually at one point. So this was almost an excuse for me. If you're not someone who's slanted in that direction, I would say be wary of doing something like this. I would rather that person get out from under the property somehow and eat a little equity, I guess. But yeah, I don't know that I have a good answer there necessarily, Josh. Sorry,
That's good enough. I mean, I'm going to judge you no matter what your answer is. So it's fine.
Well, cool.
So
Go ahead.
go ahead, Brandon.
No, you take it.
Come on.
All right. I was going to ask, you said earlier you've always kind of been interested and thought you'd get into real estate.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, what about real estate kind of made you want to get into it eventually and keep that in the back of your, like, why was that in the back of your mind to get into it?
Right. So, my father was not, my family's not necessarily real estate owners, so I didn't necessarily get it there. But, I've seen other people, and when what it was when I started blogging a lot, writing about personal finance, a lot of people talked about how rental properties would be a good addition to, the income stream that they're trying to build for themselves. So typically in personal finance, you talk about saving enough in your retirement accounts. That way you have an income stream in retirement to live off of. Well, people additionally add on to that real estate. And so for me, that was always, an interesting part of it. My wife's best friend's dad, if you can follow me there, does a little bit of real estate dabbling, and he just seems so practical about it. Like, it wasn't a mystery for him, it wasn't scary for him, and he had a lot of conversations with him about the process, some of the rental properties he had, some of the ways he was adding values to the pieces of land that he was purchasing. And it just seemed it sort of brought it out of behind the curtain, and it wasn't necessarily a mystery anymore. And you really made it just seem so practical. You know what? We also had a very good landlord when we were renting a townhome in that same neighborhood. So we rented a townhome in the neighborhood that we eventually purchased a property that became our rental property. And we just enjoyed him as a landlord, and I really just felt like it was a beautiful investment for him. And so I could see it. And at the same time, I was sort of fixing my financial situation. And I thought, you know what, we're putting a lot in our retirement accounts. We're really hammering those, maxing those out. Let's take some of this extra cash now that we have and think about doing a rental property.
Let me ask you about the landlord. You said you had a really good landlord.
I was going to say the exact same thing. That's really funny.
Yeah, we have a lot of landlords listening to this. So what do you believe? I mean, what made them a good landlord? What do you admire about them? What made them good to rent from them?
You know what it was? We were pretty easy tenants, I think, on him, but he was very responsive. As soon as we had an issue or a question, he was there. He fixed it, problems immediately. But it was really more impressive how he was handling it because he lived in New York and here we are in Texas. And I don't even think I think he purchased the property without even seeing it.
Okay.
And was renting it out. And so it just seemed to be like just a wise guy, to have pulled this off and to be doing it. And in a time when, he could see some good tenants come through there, we being one of them. But I don't know. It just seemed like something. I just looked up to the guy because he was the one who was making money off the deal. I was paying him, but I wanted to be that guy one day,
Yeah. And I'm just curious. I don't know if you remember, but how did he, were you working directly with him as the manager? Was he managing the property from 2,500 miles away or was there someone else in between?
Yeah, it was just he and I. And he would give us deposit slips to take the check over to the bank and put it in. We'd deposit our check for him. Yeah. So it was just, and when we had a problem, then he would call a local service person or something to fix the issue. But yeah,
Gotcha.
And you know what also led me into real estate, I think, was that when we did eventually buy that property that became our rental, I made some improvements to the home myself. I put down hardwood floors. We did some painting, and I got comfortable with doing a lot of the maintenance at the house itself. And so that gave me some confidence going into when we decided eventually to make it a rental. So.
Right on.
Can I expand on that just a minute? I want to talk about doing your own work, because a lot of people, I mean, like me and Ben Leibovich have this like battle back and forth the last year about, I like to do my own work a lot of times. I don't as much anymore, but I did a lot of my own work and he doesn't. So you obviously are one that's more hands-on. I guess, do you have any advice for people listening who might be wondering that, like they might say, hey, I don't know how to do anything right now. I'm not very handy. Should they just, try to learn? Like, how should they, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, YouTube is your friend. I mean, so go there as much as possible, but I mean, also don't get yourself into a situation where you're working on something that's, over your head. I mean, electrical or some plumbing issues. I mean, or to me, red flags, even though I know some electrical, I still try to stay away from some of those repairs.
Yeah.
So just, know your limits, I guess, and know when to call in a pro. Don't drag issues out for your tenant, because that's just going to create a negative situation.
Yeah.
If you're trying to always go over there and be the guy who fixes the toilet or whatever, if it requires a pro, just be able to judge, what's something that, okay, I've spent as much time as I need to on this particular repair or whatever. It's time to call in a pro and get somebody in here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just find that balance for yourself, and don't feel like you need to take it all on initially. For me, I looked at it as a learning experience. So whenever an issue came up, I thought, I can learn something about this. I can maybe try to fix it, but there's a point into where, point of no return, I guess, or what is it? The law of diminishing returns. You just get to that point. It's like, okay, call someone.
Yeah.
So you manage your own properties and you do your own work. How do you manage your properties as somebody who, has never done this before? What do you do? What's your process? Do you not have one and kind of play by the seat of your pants?
I do a little bit by the seat of my pants. I stress that I have a good property. It's a new property. It's only 7 years old. And it's also an area where there's high demand right now. And so I wouldn't feel as comfortable probably in the reverse situation. So I have that going for me. Okay. But in terms of managing it, it's pretty simple. I connect with the guy over Chase QuickPay to make the rent payment.
Okay.
So that's pretty simple. I check in with him periodically, not as much as I should, but periodically to make sure everything's okay. I make all my mortgage payment, my HOA, my insurance is all automated. So I've got that where it's not something I even have to think about. In terms of the onboarding tenants, that was probably the most hairy part and part I was most uncomfortable doing myself.
Okay.
But just did some research, talked with a buddy who had a rental property agreement already in Texas, and he's a lawyer. And so I paid him for that rental agreement, and then started using that for my own tenants. The onboarding process was still difficult, though, because you need to screen people, you need to make sure that you go through a background check, all those things. But what I decided was basically that I just needed to have a fixed process I put everyone through. So they make the application, they go do the screening process, they give me the other information they need to make, and I make sure I just put everyone through that same. That's what I've heard about onboarding tenants. You just got to make sure you put everyone through the same process, right?
Yep.
And so that's what I stressed, is that I made it identical process for everyone coming through, and I set pretty high standards for myself, and I could. I mean, we were in a pretty in-demand market, like I said, and so that made it pretty easy to keep my standards pretty high.
That's great.
And so what does that mean in terms of high standards? What is it your rent, your income ratios? What exactly are you using as your high standard?
Yeah, so people with perfect credit situations and no pets, no smoking, and no criminal history at all. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Is people coming in with, which I can tell are like corporate employee types who are coming into the area just because a job moved them here, essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. And any mistakes that you made on the property as a landlord? I forget the part when you live there, but since you started renting it out.
Yeah, the biggest mistake I made was when we bought it. We bought it at the peak, right? So
Yeah. But you bought
probably
that as a property to live in. So, I mean,
right,
was that a mistake? You needed a house. That was where you live, right?
right. We are happy. Yes, we were happy with it. We still are. Yes, true.
Yeah.
And
Probably the
I
Go ahead.
like, well, I like the idea. I mean, like you bought a house in a bad time. A lot of people do, like they buy a house in a bad time. They bought it in 06, 07, and then maybe they go underwater, maybe whatever. And they blame the economy. They blame, Bush or Obama or whatever, they just get like, I don't know. And then they end up losing the house in foreclosure because it's not their fault. The economy sucks. I love the idea that you stuck through it, like you made it work. You turned it into a rental. Maybe you could have sold it at a loss or, lost your down payment, but I don't know. I like the idea that you are somebody who took action and didn't let the world kind of push you around. You made it work rather than making somebody else make you work.
Have you seen this guy? He pushes people.
I know he's good at this. So this is good.
Well, thanks for that. But I also have the advantage of being in Dallas, Texas, where real estate, the bubble wasn't nearly as bad as it was for me as for some people. But yes, I appreciate that. Thank you. We did put 20% down on that property, and I would always encourage people when they're buying their homes to try to shoot for that.
That was actually a question I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes situations like this a lot easier to manage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. So what are your thoughts? You're in Texas. Texas, for people in California is a good place to buy, and people from other places. What are your thoughts on paying cash for a property versus financing it?
I'm a pretty conservative guy, so if I could pay cash for a property, I probably would. Okay. My next rental property, if we got that far, well, let's put it in this perspective. Before we get another rental property or another investment property of any type, we're going to pay off one of our home loans. So we're going to get to that comfortable, or I say one of our loans. So either our home loan or the rental property loan. We would want one of those to be zero before we take on another debt. So I'm comfortable with a little debt. It certainly helps from a tax perspective. We'll see if we go through the numbers on my property, but I cash flowed $4,000 and then had a $5,000 loss on my taxes that I could net against my income. So there's benefits to using the leverage. I think that makes sense. So I'm not necessarily opposed to buying all cash or using some debt, but ideal for me is cash, keeping debt out of my life.
Well, so you mentioned you cash flowed, yet you had took a loss on your taxes. Can you, for those people who don't know why that is or how that works, can you kind of shed some light on that?
Right. So I cash flowed because the rents I took in exceeded all of my expenses for the year. So that makes sense, right? Everybody can follow that. Yep. On the flip side, for tax purposes, for taxes, you get to take advantage of depreciation. And so depreciation on the property, I think, was somewhere around $12,000 or so for the first or second year. And so netting that against that, if you take that against that $4,000 gain, I mean, it's somewhere around $5,000-$6,000. I got the math wrong in there, but anyway,
I got you.
I'm lost.
The depreciation is the big factor.
Usually are.
So with taxes, you get to take depreciation on the property, something that's not factored into a cash flow analysis.
Yeah.
And so from a tax perspective, it comes across as a loss, which reduces my taxable income by $5,000, which in effect in a 25% tax bracket would save me $1,250 for the year in taxes.
That's great. I know I found before like my current W-2 that I have through BiggerPockets, like when I was just doing real estate 100%.
When you were financially independent.
When I was, relaxing on a beach because I'm, rich. Yeah, I'm loaded right now. I never paid taxes because I didn't make a lot off my rentals. It wasn't like I was raking in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but I made enough to survive. Yet the depreciation on like all my properties killed any taxes that I owed. So I didn't pay a dime for years in taxes. And it was like the best thing ever. Now all of a sudden, like last year, I had a tax bill for the first time because my depreciation didn't quite offset all of my, income. So anyway, that's just another benefit that we don't talk about that much, especially here on the podcast, but it's just in general. But it's one of the four, I guess, biggest reasons why people invest in real estate. Cash flow, appreciation, tax benefits, and what am I missing? What's the fourth one?
I
Fun.
stopped paying attention when you started.
Yeah,
talking,
whatever.
so, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, you usually do. All right. So moving forward, one of the last questions I have before we kind of move to the end, where do you see yourself going forward? You kind of said this earlier about you want to pay off a loan, but how do you envision using real estate going forward to achieve your goals and where you want to get to?
Yeah, so I'm actually starting to look at early retirement or financial independence. And so I see real estate for me right now as being a part of the cash flow, monthly cash flow that provides me the ability to be financially independent and retire early, possibly. So I like it for that reason. So for that reason, I think I'll always try to have it. And I think it's a counterbalance to, not a direct counterbalance, but it balances us out when it comes to our other savings. So our retirement savings essentially. And so I see us at some point starting to withdraw on that, and then also withdrawing, the cash flow from our rental property as both income sources to sort of have, when one's bad, you can draw from the other. When one's good, you can draw from the other. And so it's just a balancing act, another iron in the fire, so to speak, to have. And so, whether we go for more properties, I think eventually we will. I'd like to even get into like it's always been, I guess, sort of an interest to me to do like a storage facility or an RV rental type of piece of land, some place where you can add a lot more value because you have a lot more land. And so instead of just like a fixed home, but I really like the property we have, and if we could repeat it 2 or 3 times, I would do it. So,
Nice.
Cool. Oh, by the way, I remembered my fourth one, amortization. In other words, like the loan gets paid down. That's the fourth benefit. So, cash flow appreciation, tax benefits, and the loan pay down. Anyway, I just want people to know I'm not completely stupid here.
And again, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, whatever. All right.
Just start yapping, and really quick, we did our last show with Alan Glass on value add investing, and if you haven't checked it out yet, Phil, I definitely recommend it. It's really interesting. His whole philosophy is look for properties where you can add some kind of value, and he does some really fascinating stuff. Definitely worth listening to, and that's biggerpockets.com/show98. My last question before our last section is, you're a personal finance writer. For those people who are unfamiliar with Philip, he is probably one of the most famous personal finance writers. This guy is a big deal, and I know he's blushing, and that's okay because I'm going to hype you up anyway. No, he's amazing. He's a big deal. He runs a monster conference for financial bloggers and has for years. So, the pressure's on. You ready? Here's the question. All right. So besides real estate, what do you recommend to our listeners to do to prepare financially for their future? What's your best piece of advice for folks? And I'm going to tweak it, not necessarily to prepare for their future, but to prepare for their future and to prepare so that they can continue to, or if they haven't already, since this is a newbie podcast, start to get involved in real estate.
Yep. Good question. And this works perfectly with my story because we were able to do what we do because we had implemented some personal finance practices before we got into real estate that made the whole thing, work a lot smoother. So my biggest piece of advice I try to tell people is to pay yourself first. You've heard it before, but I'm going to tell you specifically how I want you to implement that. I want you to take the first few dollars that you make every week, every month, every bi-monthly, or whatever your payment is, and automatically invest that in some type of savings account, whether that be a generic savings account or a retirement investing account or multiple. So set yourself some goals and then make these automatic savings deposits into these accounts happen before you have money then to spend the rest of the month. So if you wait to the end of the month to do it, and I've tried myself, you'll fail. You'll have some months of success, but then ultimately over the long run you'll fail. But if you're paying yourself first consistently, automatically, and in accounts that are separate, I think in the long run you'll have some success, and that's what set us up for success. And we continue to do that, and it allowed us to have that rainy day fund, that nice down payment. And allow you to do a lot more things in the future. So pay yourself first, get that money over into those accounts, save before you do anything else. Make that a priority in your life, and then every other thing becomes easy after that point, in my opinion.
That's great
love
advice.
it.
Really. That's Richest Man in Babylon where I learned that. And we do that, with our kids. We pay them before we pay, we pay ourselves to savings, and we put money away for them, and doing the same thing, because once it's automatic and it's gone, we don't count that as income. We have to make above and beyond that money, or else we're in trouble, because that money is coming out, period, no matter what. And if it's not, something's not right. So
people who follow that method in retirement, they say the same thing over and over. They didn't miss the money. You hit on it. They didn't miss the money because it was going out before they had to think about it. And you can start small. Start with just $25 a month.
Yep.
But get into that habit, and then you'll see the results, and you'll start increasing that number over time, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Well, time to move on to the end of the show, end of the segment, which is
Famous Four.
Oh, something happened. This is our famous four. We ask these questions to everybody on the podcast, and we will ask you the same question. So, Brandon, why don't you take it away?
Do you have a favorite real estate related book?
The only one I've ever read is James Randall's The Skinny on Real Estate Investing.
Really?
And it's a little Cliff Notes version of a book. I mean, it's great, action packed, talks about the 10% rule on making your decision to buy a specific property. Talks about adding value, all those things that you need to kind of learn up front to evaluate properties.
Cool.
Gotcha.
I've not read that one, and I've never heard anybody recommend it
Yeah,
on the show yet.
Either. Yeah.
Man, we got a lot of good recommendations this episode of the podcast. Yeah. All right, moving on.
What about favorite business book?
Definitely love the E-Myth, and also love Millionaire Fastlane. Both of them are top notch, in my opinion.
Millionaire Fastlane's been on my Amazon wish list forever, and I've never bought it yet, but I will buy it now because you said that. So I'm buying it today.
Nice. All right. Well done. What about hobbies? What do you do for fun? You've got a beautiful family. I know you get to spend some good time with them. What do you guys do?
Yeah, we do little kid things, I guess. We spend some time with them. Also work on my businesses. That's fun for me. My hobby are my businesses. Also play basketball once a week with some guys, pick up basketball, and also just got into Walking Dead. So I'm starting it. So I'm doing that.
Good show.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, my last question. What do you believe sets apart successful, and I will say it like I did last time, what do you believe sets apart financially successful people from those who seem to fail or never really gain any traction with their finances?
Yeah, I thought about this question for a while, and there's sort of two answers, I think, because of the way you end the question. You say get started and never get started or fail. So I think it does take someone who's willing to risk to get started. So I think you need to be a risky person to get started. But I think to avoid failing, you sort of need to have a conservative tilt as well. So you need to be prepared to take that risk. So in my opinion, for me, what's worked for me is that I was conservative enough in my finances to be able to take that risk. And so I guess it lessened that risk. But I still had to take it. I still had to go into that unknown area, that place where people try to warn you about going, doing it all yourself or getting tenants or whatever. So being willing to take that risk, but doing it in a conservative way, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Love it.
All right, where can people learn more about you or read you or whatever? Where do they find you? How do we get in touch?
I like Twitter. You can hit me up at PTMoney on Twitter, or just head to the website ptmoney.com. I also, like you mentioned, run the conference as well. It's at FinCon or FinConExpo.com.
Nice.
So check it out. Pleasure being on with you guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, what's the best real estate investing site on earth?
BiggerPockets, baby.
Yeah!
No doubt. Oh, and you can go PT Money and read some of Brandon's work. He's written there a few times.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm sorry to put you on.
You're not sorry.
I'm not sorry at all.
No.
Oh man. Hey,
you guys have blown away the competition, man.
It's been awesome. Listen, we really appreciate it, and thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure for sure.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, PT. All right, everybody. That was our interview with PT Philip Taylor, the man behind the FinCon conference. Brandon and I really love attending that thing. Lots of great people. We've got lots of friends in that community, and we definitely encourage people to follow Philip at his blog at ptmoney.com. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I need to go find a Kleenex and a nice warm bath, and I don't know what else you have to do when you got a cold. So, Josh, take us out of here.
You want some Pampers too?
I don't. I just want the sympathy of
Little
the 40,000 people listening to this. All right.
Yeah. You get none.
I get none.
All right, guys. Listen, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for putting up with us for 99 shows. We've got a extra special show for you next week.
Extra
I think.
Special.
Yes.
Emphasis on the special.
Oh, geez. Listen, we're excited. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to our sponsors, Realty Shares, for putting up with us and supporting us. And thanks to you guys for being a part of our world. If you aren't already a part of Bigger Pockets, please jump in, create an account today. Are you crying or
no? I was inhaling. All right, come on.
Oh, you do live in Washington, so you know.
Not like that. I never inhaled.
I did not inhale. That was my very, very bad Bill Clinton.
Terrible. And he used to be an actor, people. Come on.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you for being a part of our world. And if you're not a member of Bigger Pockets already, please jump on and create an account today at www.biggerpockets.com. The greatest real estate investing site on the planet. It's awesome. There's lots of great people. Hey, join us, hang out with us, meet great people, become successful, hang out. And anyway, we're thankful to all you guys this post Thanksgiving, and we'll look forward to. I can't talk. We look forward to talking to you next week on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I can't talk. Brandon, take us out of here.
All right, show number 99 is in the books.
This
is Brandon and Josh signing off.
You're listening to Bigger Pockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.